The ship Althera drifted silently through the void of space, its engines whispering their way across an uncharted sector. Captain Ilara Vasquez stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the distant glow of the system ahead. It was supposed to be an ordinary survey mission, just another routine exploration, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different this time. Her crew, a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits, all went about their tasks with their usual precision, but even they could sense it. Ilara's thoughts were interrupted by the sudden sharp chime of the communication console. She turned, swiftly tapping the console's touchpad to receive the message. "Captain, we've detected something," Lieutenant Orn's voice crackled through the speaker. It's not a ship. Not a station, either. It's a structure of some kind, hidden in the asteroid field. It's ancient." Ilara frowned, her instincts immediately kicking in. "What kind of structure?" "We don't know yet. It's huge, several kilometers in diameter. But it doesn't match anything in our database. Whatever it is, it's old, very old." A strange feeling twisted in Ilara's gut, but she pushed it aside. "All right, Orn, plot a course. We'll investigate." Minutes later, Althera maneuvered carefully through the asteroid belt, the crew working with practiced efficiency. The strange structure loomed ahead, gradually becoming more visible as they drew closer. At first, it appeared like an enormous black obelisk, its surface marred by ancient, deep-set scars. But as they got closer, more details began to emerge. There were markings, symbols carved into the surface, intricate and elegant, yet completely alien. There were no signs of life, no indication that anyone had been here for millennia. Ilara's breath caught in her throat as they approached the outer structure. It was a marvel of ancient engineering, built with a technology that defied everything they knew. It felt almost alive. She couldn't explain it. She had seen alien structures before, but this was different. The Althera hovered near the edge of the object's perimeter as the crew gathered around, trying to make sense of the readings. "Captain, we've got a scan of the interior," Orn said. "The structure's sealed, but it looks like there are doors, faint energy readings. No life signs detected." Ilara looked over her shoulder at her first officer, Jace Monroe, whose face was impassive as always. He raised an eyebrow, clearly waiting for her to make the call. Without a word, Ilara nodded. "Prepare an away team. Monroe, take the lead. I want a full scan before you enter. No unnecessary risks." Jace nodded curtly. "Understood, Captain." Minutes later, Ilara watched from the ship's observation deck as Jace and his team suited up, making their way to the airlock. They were ready for whatever lay ahead. But even as they boarded the shuttle, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Something waiting. The away team landed with precision, their boots thudding softly on the dark cracked surface of the ancient structure. The door was massive, easily 30 meters tall, covered in glowing glyphs that pulsed faintly as if in response to their presence. Jace approached carefully, scanning it with a handheld device. It's active," Jace murmured, his voice full of awe. "It's like it's responding to us." "Don't touch anything unless I say so." Ilara's voice came through the comms, steady and commanding. "Take your time, Monroe. We need data." Jace nodded, his eyes scanning the glyphs as his team worked to establish a connection with the structure. There was an eerie stillness in the air, the kind that made every movement feel like it was in slow motion. The door at least was welcoming, seemingly opening of its own accord, the ancient mechanisms groaning in protest as they activated. It was a passage into the unknown, and every instinct Ilara had told her that they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Inside, the air was cold. The walls were lined with sleek, smooth surfaces that shimmered under the light of their flashlights. The architecture was like nothing they had ever encountered, curved, organic in shape, yet structured with an almost mechanical precision. There were no signs of any organic life forms, but the eerie quiet, combined with the low hum of the ship's equipment, made the entire place feel oppressive. Monroe led the way, his team trailing closely behind. They followed a winding corridor that seemed to stretch for miles, each turn revealing more mystery. And then, as they approached a large chamber, the temperature suddenly dropped. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of foreboding. The walls in this room were covered in strange markings, not just etched, but seemingly woven into the fabric of the room itself. Suddenly, a voice boomed through the comm system. "Turn back." The voice was deep and resonant, so powerful it sent a shockwave of fear through Ilara. It wasn't a transmission. There was no sign of anyone nearby. It was something else. Something older. But the command was unmistakable. Monroe's voice came through the comms, tight with tension. "Captain, we've—" The signal cut off abruptly. Alara felt a cold hand grip her heart as the crew on the ship scrambled to regain contact. She knew something was wrong. Deeply wrong. She ordered a full lockdown, but it was too late. The ship's systems began to flicker and pulse, as though they were being overridden. It was then that Alara realized that the structure was far more than a mere relic. It was alive, and it was watching them. Without wasting any more time, Alara made her decision. She turned to her communications officer. "Send a distress signal, full power." But the signal was intercepted before it even left the ship. From the depths of the structure, a figure emerged. A shadow so dark it consumed the light around it. Tall, humanoid, but distorted, its form twisted in a way that made it impossible to look at directly. It stood in the doorway, its presence pressing in on them. "We've been waiting," the entity said, its voice like thunder, reverberating in Alara's chest, "for the one who would awaken us." The words hit her like a physical blow. She felt the weight of them. What are you?" The entity tilted its head, a flicker of something almost like amusement in its shifting form. "I am the first, the one who remembers. You have come to claim the knowledge that has been lost. But what will you do with it?" Alara struggled to hold her ground, though her mind raced. She had always known this mission would be different, but she never imagined anything like this. The structure, the entity, it was all connected, and they had awakened it just by crossing its threshold? "I'm not here to claim anything," Alara said, her voice steady despite the rising terror. "We came to explore, to learn." The entity's laugh rumbled through the air like thunder. "You cannot learn what you were never meant to know. But you will, oh you will, in time." Alara's eyes narrowed. The air around her seemed to warp and distort, like the very fabric of reality was being twisted. She felt a pull, an irresistible force drawing her toward the entity, but she resisted. They couldn't stay. They couldn't let it spread beyond this place. She gave the order, "Everyone, fall back." But even as she said the words, the walls began to close in. The structure was shifting, closing off all exits. They were trapped. And the only way out was through whatever this entity was. And then, without warning, the entire structure seemed to come alive. The walls dissolved into light, and the crew was plunged into a void of swirling energy. The entity's voice, now all-encompassing, filled the air. "You will see, you will understand, the price of knowledge is high." And then everything went black. Alara's consciousness flickered back to life, emerging slowly from darkness like a diver rising to the surface of a bottomless ocean. Her breath caught sharply as she opened her eyes, but all she could see was a swirling, infinite expanse of shifting colors and shapes. It felt as if reality itself had unraveled around her, leaving only fragments of light and shadow drifting like ethereal memories. She struggled to rise, but there was no solid ground beneath her, only the sensation of floating, weightless and disconnected from the tangible universe. Panic surged through her veins, and she called out desperately into the void. "Monroe? Orin? Anyone!" Only silence answered at first, an endless, suffocating silence that tightened around her chest. Then, gradually, a familiar voice echoed faintly through the disorienting haze. "Captain, I'm here." It was Monroe, his voice strained but resolute. Alara felt a surge of relief and reached out instinctively, feeling as though her consciousness itself was stretching outward toward him. To her astonishment, she felt his presence nearby, not physically, but as a luminous silhouette pulsing with energy in the shifting void. "What's happened to us, Jace?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to sound calm. "I think we've entered some sort of quantum nexus," Monroe answered, his voice reverberating softly through the strange, intangible medium that connected them. "Whatever we found wasn't just a structure. It's a gateway, or a living consciousness. It's merged with our minds." Alara forced herself to remain calm, to analyze rather than panic. "Then where are the others? Orin? The rest of the away team?" "I'm here too," came Orin's voice, slightly weaker but steady like a candle flame flickering in a gentle breeze. "We're all here, Captain, but scattered, disconnected. I can sense everyone. We're linked somehow." As Oren spoke, more faint glimmers of awareness appeared around Ilara, each representing a crew member's mind. The colors and forms around her grew more coherent, solidifying slightly into clear images. She realized with awe that they weren't just trapped, they were connected, suspended in a shared mental construct, a dimension beyond their understanding. The entity's voice returned then, vibrating through their shared consciousness with a force that nearly overwhelmed her senses. You begin to perceive. You seek answers, Captain Vasquez, yet your species is not ready. Knowledge comes with consequence. Ilara's defiance rose swiftly, her fear now tempered by determination. You speak of knowledge and consequence, but you trapped us here. What is it you want from us? The entity's form began to coalesce once more, manifesting as a vast, shadowed presence, its edges shimmering with impossible geometry. Long ago, our civilization reached the pinnacle of understanding. We transcended matter, mastering space and time itself. Yet our hubris led us to seek dominion over reality. We built constructs like this one to preserve our minds, our knowledge, forever. Then you're what's left of them, Monroe surmised quietly, the gravity of the revelation resonating among the crew. Not left, the entity corrected. We remain eternal, awaiting those capable of bearing our knowledge. Many have come before you, all failed, their minds unraveled by truths they could not withstand. Ilara felt anger flare within her at the casual dismissal of countless lives. So we're just another experiment to you. An opportunity, it clarified, almost gently. Humanity stands at the precipice of true understanding, but you, Captain, must decide. Accept our truths and become bearers of cosmic enlightenment, or return to ignorance and be free. The weight of the choice pressed heavily upon Ilara, yet she sensed the question itself was deceptive. Her crew remained silent, their presence close, waiting for her guidance. She knew instinctively that mere acceptance or refusal would not end well. Why humanity? Ilara questioned carefully. The entity's tone shifted subtly, carrying a trace of emotion, perhaps sorrow or longing. Because your kind harbors something rare among the stars, compassion bound with curiosity, strength coupled with humility, you are violent yet empathetic, ambitious yet reflective. Humanity may survive truths that shattered empires. Ilara felt Monroe's presence pulse softly beside her, a silent encouragement. She knew then that retreating was impossible. To flee was to doom another species or another crew to the same fate. She chose boldly. Show us, she demanded. Let us see what shattered empires could not. The entity hesitated, its vast form rippling with uncertainty. Once seen, it cannot be unseen. Are you prepared to risk your minds, your souls, to glimpse eternity? Ilara reached out with determination, feeling Monroe, Oren, and the rest of her crew strengthen her resolve, their energies converging upon her. Together, we are. Instantly, the void exploded into a cascade of visions. The universe unfolded before them, infinite timelines branching and merging, galaxies spinning into existence and collapsing again. They witnessed civilizations rise to unimaginable heights, only to collapse under their own ambition or despair. Time itself fractured, showing glimpses of past, present, and countless futures simultaneously. The crew's minds strained under the overwhelming flood of insight, their individuality flickering dangerously close to dissolution. Ilara focused her will, anchoring herself and her crew. Hold on to who you are. Don't lose yourselves, she called desperately. Slowly, painfully, they adapted, grasping and holding on to fragments of their identities, their humanity. The entity watched, intrigued, as they endured the impossible, emerging not broken, but transformed. When the visions faded, Ilara gasped, shaken to her core yet fiercely alive. Her crew, linked to her consciousness, shared the revelation. They had survived what none before them could. The entity's voice, softer now, resonated through their minds. Remarkable! You have surpassed expectations. You hold the knowledge of eternity. What will you do with it? Ilara considered carefully, her mind now capable of processing layers of reality once unimaginable. We will learn from it, grow stronger, and protect others from making the same mistakes. We'll carry this knowledge forward, not as a burden, but as a beacon. A deep silence filled the void before the entity finally responded, its tone filled with respect and quiet acceptance. Then you are ready. Return to your universe, Ilaro Vasquez, and be the guardians your species deserve. Reality shifted once more, a sudden disorienting rush that sent the crew tumbling back into their physical forms aboard the Althera. Ilara opened her eyes, breathing heavily as the familiar hum of the ship's systems returned. Monroe stood nearby, eyes wide with wonder. Orrin rose unsteadily, staring at his hands, as though seeing them for the first time. "Captain," Monroe began uncertainly, voice thick with awe. "I know," Ilara said gently, her heart racing yet calm. "We remember everything." Their instruments showed that no time had passed. The structure was gone, vanished without a trace, as though it had never existed. Yet within their minds lay an entire universe of memories, wisdom, and possibility. As the Althera slowly resumed its course, Ilara looked out at the endless starscape stretching before them. Humanity now stood on the brink of a new era, one guided by insight and tempered by caution. Yet deep within her, a quiet thought lingered. Had they truly chosen this path freely, or had the entity orchestrated their entire journey, shaping their decisions from the very start? In the depths of space unseen by mortal eyes, the entity observed silently, satisfied with the seeds it had planted. Humanity would become its legacy, a species capable of bearing eternal truths. And when the time was right, the entity knew they would return. After all, eternity always waits for those brave enough to seek it. The silence aboard the Althera was deafening, stretching long after the entity's presence had faded from their minds. Ilara stood before the view screen, her fingers brushing the cool metal of the ship's console as her eyes scanned the stars beyond. Everything felt different now. It was as though a vast, unseen weight had settled over her shoulders, the burden of eternity now woven into the very fabric of her thoughts. Monroe, Orrin, and the others moved silently about the ship, each lost in their own thoughts, the weight of the experience pressing on them all. "Captain," Orrin's voice broke through the quiet, his tone both hesitant and curious. "What happens now? What do we do with all of this knowledge?" Ilara turned slowly, meeting his gaze. Her mind was still processing the flood of visions and truths they had experienced, the unimaginable vastness of time and space that now felt as if it were part of her very being. She understood what they had been shown, the truths of the universe, its beauty, its terror, its endless cycles of creation and destruction. But the knowledge also carried a tremendous responsibility. How could they, mere humans, bear the weight of it all? "I don't know," she said, her voice calm but heavy with uncertainty. "I don't know what we're supposed to do with it. But we have to be careful. The universe is not ready for this knowledge, and neither are we. We have seen the consequences of civilizations that tried to wield it without understanding. We must be better." Monroe approached, his expression conflicted, yet there was something in his eyes, a spark of something deeper, something that had shifted within him, within all of them. "We're not the same anymore, are we? None of us are. We've touched the fabric of reality itself. We can't unsee what we've seen." "No," Ilara replied softly. "We can't unsee it, but we can choose what we do with it." They all stood in quiet contemplation, the enormity of their decision weighing heavily on them. The universe had opened itself to them, showing them the grandeur of existence, its vastness, its terrifying unpredictability. And now, they were left with a choice. Could they go back to their former lives, to the simplicity of missions and battles, knowing that they were forever changed? A sudden blip on the ship's sensors pulled Ilara from her reverie. She turned quickly, her mind snapping back into focus as her fingers flew across the console. Her eyes widened as she studied the readings on the screen. "Captain," Monroe said, his voice tense, "what is it?" "There's something out there," Ilara said, her heart pounding. "A massive energy spike. It's coming from the far side of the sector." "We're not alone," Orrin muttered, his face paling as he took a step closer to the console. Alora's gaze flicked between the crew members, her thoughts racing. "Prepare the ship. Monroe, get us a full scan of that area. Orrin, check the weapon systems. We're not sure what we're dealing with, but we need to be ready." Monroe didn't hesitate, moving to his station as Ilara moved toward the command chair. The familiar hum of the Althera came to life as the crew worked with an urgency that Ilara had only seen during their most dangerous moments. "Scanning now," Monroe said, his voice steady but tense. His eyes flicked over the data as the screen flashed with results. "It's something enormous. I've never seen anything like it. The energy readings are off the charts. It's not a ship. It's more like a spatial anomaly, a tear in space itself. Elara's mind raced. A tear in space? She had heard stories of such phenomena, but no one had ever thought they were real. This anomaly, this rift, could be the result of the very kind of tampering with the fabric of reality that they had witnessed during their encounter with the entity. But it was something more, something dangerous. "Captain," Orin said, his voice grave. "We don't know what kind of power this anomaly could have. We've seen the consequences of playing with space and time already. If it's unstable—" "I know," Ilara interrupted, her voice firm. "We need to find out what it is before it gets any worse. If this rift is what I think it is, we might be looking at the collapse of the entire sector." Monroe turned back from his console, his expression grim. "Captain, the anomaly is growing. It's expanding, and it's pulling in everything around it. It's like a black hole, but it's not quite a black hole. It's alive. We don't know what it wants, but it's reaching for us." Ilara felt her heart pound in her chest. There was no time for hesitation. They had to act quickly. She leaned forward in her chair, her mind working at a frantic pace, pulling together the knowledge and the instincts that had served her through countless missions. "Set a course for the anomaly," she ordered. "Full speed ahead. We need to get as close as we can to it. If there's a way to close it, we'll find it. If not, we'll have to destroy it." The crew moved quickly, following her orders without question. The Althera surged forward, the hum of its engines vibrating through the ship as it accelerated toward the anomaly. Alara's mind raced, the weight of their previous encounter with the entity pressing down on her shoulders. She had felt the force of the universe, the power, the danger, the beauty. And now she was about to confront it head-on. The anomaly loomed ahead, a swirling mass of energy and light, twisting and bending space itself. It was unlike anything Ilara had ever seen. An unstable, pulsing rift that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Her eyes widened as they approached, the sheer magnitude of the phenomenon causing a wave of awe and terror to rise within her. "Captain," Monroe said, his voice tight with tension, "we're approaching the rift. The readings are off the scale. We won't be able to hold the ship together if we get any closer." Ilara took a deep breath, her hand clenched around the armrest of her chair. "We have no choice. We need to understand this thing before it destroys everything." "Understood," Monroe replied, his voice steady but tinged with the weight of impending danger. The ship rocked as they neared the rift, and Ilara could feel the pull of the anomaly, a tug at the very fabric of their reality. It was alive. She could sense it, feel it in her bones, like a giant hungry creature reaching out to consume everything in its path. "Steady," she said, her voice calm, but her mind was racing. "We need to get a closer look. If we can pinpoint its core, maybe we can stop it." As they edged closer, the ship shuddered violently, the systems groaning under the strain. Ilara's heart pounded as she watched the readings flicker wildly on the display. The rift was growing, expanding, and there was no telling how long they had before it consumed everything in its path. "Captain," Orin said urgently, "the gravitational field is collapsing. We're running out of time. We need to make a decision." Ilara's mind flashed to the entity's warning. The knowledge they had gained was powerful, yes, but it was also dangerous. They could not afford to make the same mistake others had made before them. This anomaly? It was a test, one that required the crew to make a choice not just for their survival, but for the survival of all those who might come after them. She looked at her crew, each of them standing at the ready, waiting for her orders. Monroe, Orin, the others, they were with her, trusting her judgment. They had already touched eternity. They had already glimpsed what lay beyond the veil. And now they would face the final decision. Would they try to close the rift and save the sector? Or would they destroy it, ensuring that the knowledge within could never reach another soul? There was no easy answer, but Ilara knew one thing. She would not let their journey be in vain. She would not let the universe be consumed by forces they could not control. With a final steadying breath, Ilara made her decision. "Prepare to enter the rift," she ordered, her voice unwavering. The crew nodded, their resolve firm. They had already seen the consequences of tampering with reality. Now they would face its ultimate test. As the Althera hurtled toward the anomaly, the universe around them seemed to stretch, warp, and bend. Time itself cracked and splintered, and Ilara's vision filled with an overwhelming torrent of colors and shapes. But through the chaos, one truth rang clear. They had come too far to turn back. With a final epic surge, the ship entered the rift. The universe held its breath,